was my 36th birthday, 2016, and there I was looking into the grave of an entire family that was murdered in Pike County, Ohio. National news helicopters circled over the town of Piketon. A British tabloid sent a reporter from New York and a photographer from LA. They all left before the funeral. Other Ohio reporters and I stayed with the story, and I learned how a state program meant to help crime victims denied aid to the victims of that crime. 3 years later, national media descended again when 14 tornadoes tore through the Dayton region. They broadcast images of carnage and then ran off chasing the next catastrophe. Local reporters walked the length of the storm, talking to people about obstacles to recovery, telling their stories. Survivors thanked us for letting them know what resources were available. Agencies thanked us for letting them know what the needs were. Later that same year, a gunman opened fire in Dayton's Oregon district, killing 9 people. Cable satellite trucks crammed into East 5th Street, leaving the ground littered with coffee cups tossed aside before live shots. After they left, our reporting revealed the victims of that tragedy and their families were denied state aid. It was the same program I first learned about when covering Pike County. And now, this year, state lawmakers are working on reforms, but only after we spent a year fighting for records with the Ohio Attorney General's office. You see, when you think about the media, you often think about CNN, Fox News, the New York Times, but it's local reporters who tell you what's actually going on in the places where you live. And without local reporters, those CNN helicopters wouldn't know where to fly. I'll give you a quote. Anytime you see a story on national news that starts in a small town, odds are that began with local reporters who would not give up and who reported it right and aggressively. That's MSNBC anchor Rachel Maddow talking to her viewers a couple years ago. It was Flint Journal reporter Ron Fonger who revealed that the city of Flint, Michigan was not properly testing for lead in its water, delaying efforts to address the Flint water crisis. Julie K. Brown with the Miami Herald, she revealed the extent of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and prosecutors' refusal to pursue them. A Chicago journalist named Brandon Smith, a friend of mine, he obtained the release of the video of police murdering Laquan McDonald. And these are just a few national examples. Arguably, the most important impact of local journalism is local. Child marriage just became illegal in Ohio a couple of years ago because of reporting by the Dayton Daily News. The Cincinnati Enquirer in 2018 won a Pulitzer for their reporting on the extent of the heroin epidemic. The Cleveland Plain Dealer revealed how city officials there were failing to address lead poisoning in children. But local journalism faces a crisis that, ironically, would come as news to most people. A 2009 Pew Research study found that 71% of Americans think that their local media outlets are doing well financially. In truth, local journalism is dying. Since 2004, the United States has lost 1/4 of its newspapers, including 70 dailies and 2,000 weeklies or non-dailies, according to a group that tracks news deserts. Digital media just isn't replacing newspapers fast enough. Another 2019 study found that 60% of original local reporting is still done by newspapers. That's more than radio, TV, and online only combined. That study found that digital outlets tend to produce important local journalism, just not enough of it, still accounting for only 10% of local news stories. To be clear, this isn't about newspapers versus TV or radio or digital. I don't care that my grandchildren likely won't have a printed newspaper tossed on their doorstep. The crisis that must be addressed is that the void left as local newspapers reduce their reporting isn't being filled. The New York Times now has more digital subscribers in the Dallas-Fort Worth area than the Dallas Morning News. Now, it's great that the Times, which is a phenomenal paper, this year committed to putting 1 reporter in Dallas. But that doesn't replace the entire newsroom already there, or the 20 newsroom employees the paper had to lay off in 2019. Meanwhile, remaining papers are often bought up by larger conglomerates and then downsized. The term ghost newspaper was invented to describe papers that technically still exist, but have reduced their reporting too much to maintain their journalistic mission. These papers can have 1 or 0 reporters, often reprinting press releases and focusing on easy community features instead of expensive accountability journalism. It's estimated there are more than 1,000 of these. The United States has lost more newspaper jobs than coal mining jobs. Since 2008, total newsroom employment by newspapers has been reduced by more than half, and other outlets just haven't made up the difference. If you combine newspaper, TV, radio, and digital, total newsroom employment in this country is down 26%. That's 30,000 fewer people attending city council and school board meetings and asking questions. That's hundreds of thousands of community stories not being told. Stories about disinvestment in marginalized communities, about how your tax dollars are being spent on parks and roads, about abuses of power by local officials, or the trials and tribulations of your neighbors. Without this, community cohesion decays, democracy decays. And this has a real quantifiable impact on local communities. Studies have shown that when a newspaper closes, the cost of government increases through unchecked spending and rising bond rates. All of this because the business model that helped newspapers thrive for decades changed with the internet. But the importance and dedication of local journalists, that did not change. And the good news is, this gives us an opportunity to rethink community journalism. You see, historically, newspapers were funded almost entirely by advertising. No more. Now, they desperately need subscribers, or in the nonprofit model, donors. The human rights group PEN America has recommended a congressional commission to explore expanding the Corporation for Public Broadcasting or creating a national endowment for journalism. It's been suggested this could be funded by a special tax on groups like Facebook or Google who make money off local content without paying to produce it. These proposals are kind of wild, but the goal makes sense. Local journalism can no longer be funded by businesses, by advertisers. It should be funded by readers, by the public. And I think this can be a good thing because it creates accountability. Direct public support of local journalism requires reporters to be transparent to a level never required before. When the product of media is information and not audience, it's more important than ever to be able to demonstrate that that information is fair and accurate. That is the kind of accountability you wish you had from those talking heads on cable. So what can you do? Support local journalism. If your community is still lucky enough to have a newspaper, subscribe. If you don't think that paper is doing a good job, use your subscription as leverage. In some places, other outlets are stepping up. Public broadcasting and radio stations are using grants and donations to beef up their local reporting. With enough public support, nonprofits and online outlets can help replenish these emerging information deserts. And this is vitally important because knowledge is power. And local professional journalists are needed to empower people to know what's going on in their communities. I leave you with this. Without local professional journalists on the ground, voters and taxpayers have no way of knowing whether government programs actually work. There's no one there to give a voice to the victims of violent crime or natural disasters. And we can't combat shared challenges like a heroin epidemic or injustices or failing infrastructure if we don't know about them.